Hello and welcome to another episode of Collab with Kiva. Today I am excited to have Miriam Maima with me. Miriam has been a coach and facilitator for over 20 years, dedicating her life to studying the overlap between business and psychology. Miriam has coached founders, executives at hundreds of companies, including a dozen valued at over $1 billion. Yes, a billion, as in B. She often partners with companies from Series B all the way through going public. She also, though, works one-on-one with senior leaders, facilitates team offsites, and develops customized leadership development journeys for leaders at all levels. Her specialty is in helping people unlock the next level of performance while maximizing authenticity. And I think we could all use a bit more of that. So Miriam's additional credentials include a master's in organizational and management development, a BA in business and psychology. She is a master certified coach. For those that don't know, that's like the top. You need a gazillion hours of coaching in order to have that from the International Coaching Federation. She's a fellow at Harvard's Institute of Coaching and a member of Forbes Coaches Council. Miriam, welcome to the show.
Yay, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, I'm excited too. And I'm excited about this conversation. Today, we are going to dive in how to preserve your culture while you scale. And this is a good one because it's one thing when it's you and like one or two other people.
Yes.
It's a totally different thing when it's you and 10 other people.
Yes.
And you start to feel angst. Why is things not the same as they used to be? What about this? And then you have new people coming in. How do they feel even when they come in? So I'm excited to dive into this topic. I have a few clients whose teams are growing. And it's like, how do we preserve that culture? And especially for those who have remote teams. Like one of my clients, they have 9 employees, and like some of them get to meet for client engagements and they, travel and meet up. But for the most part, some of the young, and a whole other issue is, can we talk about like Gen X on your team and millennials, as well as Gen Y and Gen Z and all the other things? It's like, there's a lot going on nowadays. And it's like some of the younger team members are saying, can we have co-working sessions? Can we have this? Because they want more bonding, where some of the other team members are like, dude, this is why we work here. It's remote. What do we need to have this for? So I'm excited to talk about this because I think there's a lot of things that as our society shifts and workplace environment shift, that this is a really popular topic. So let's dive in and let's start with just defining culture. Let's start there.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's define culture. Because it's so vague, right? People are like, my culture. I'm like, okay, it's so touchy-feely. Like, no, it doesn't have to be so touchy-feely. My favorite way of thinking about culture is like the aggregate personality of our team. So I just like, if we were going to personify the company, like what's their attitude? Are we driven, or are we laid back, or are we both? Like, how do we deal with conflict? Are we snarky, or are we passive? Are we passive aggressive, or are we just really direct and clear and like it's no big deal? How much drama do we deal with? How are we high performing? So just thinking about essentially the personality of the company, and inevitably the culture of our business drives results. And so depending on what we want to be known for in the marketplace, we need to back up and look at our culture to make sure that we are aligning, like make sure that there's a through line of how we're treating one another, how we're relating to each other, and then therefore how we're showing up with our clients.
I love that you made that connection. I think that's something that's often missed, is that connection between the internal and really the external. And it's like, oh, we're just so focused on our clients and everything, but you actually need that team to actually buy in and have that same agreement and alignment so that the focus on the clients actually yields you the results that you're hoping for. So I love that you made that connection between the two. So let's dive into the common pitfalls related to culture, because I feel there's, I don't know, many of them. And it just seems, again, with workplaces with different age ranges and things, that there seem to be even more pitfalls than we might be aware of because we might have blinders. So I'd love to hear
Yeah.
your take though on the common pitfalls.
Yes. I think that like overall, the main pitfall is ignoring culture and just pretending it's not there or not addressing it, not consciously managing it, because a culture is going to exist. There's no company without a culture, even if it's a solopreneur. But every company has a culture. The question is, are we consciously designing it, or are we just letting it evolve over time? So that's the massive overarching pitfall, is just ignoring it. I think within that, there are a lot, like you were saying, like there's just blinders. And so what are the common blinders? I think that there's usually people with outsized personalities, and that will absolutely start to shape the culture. People will either respond well and be attracted to those people, or not really respond well and so feel more repelled by those people. But having large personalities, especially if there's large personalities that are delivering results, there's usually a lot of excuses made for not necessarily needing to have conversations with a person. And I'm all for everybody being their true authentic self. I'm about that. So I'm not here to make anyone smaller. What I think is helpful though, is for people, especially who have larger impact on those around them, are more aware, that they become increasingly aware of what that is, and that they're matching their engagements with team members to the desired culture in the company. So ignoring those large personalities, or kind of letting them just exist without keeping them, I don't want to say in check. I just want to say like really honoring how we want to operate here. And so maybe the founder or the owner has difficulty with difficult conversations. And so they're not going to someone and say, you can't be rude to this person. Like, I want you to have all your opinions in the whole world. I just want you to do it with a little bit more compassion, or a little bit more
Right.
curiosity. Make space for other people as well.
I love that though. And I love that you said something that I don't think sometimes solopreneurs in particular think about is there is a culture. Even if you're by yourself, there is still a culture for your business. And when you bring in a VA or you bring in someone else to your team, like they are looking to you for what that culture is. And like you said, it's
Yes.
either being defined by, actually being proactive in it, or no, it just kind of organically appears. We just deal with
Yeah.
as it is. But I love that. It's that just a real conscious reminder that culture does exist. Even if we don't think it exists,
Right.
it is there. And we need to be more intentional about making sure we are nurturing that part of it that we actually do want, instead of allowing other parts to maybe grow up like a weed and take
Yeah.
over. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I love that. And yes, the large personalities. Oh, I think we've all at least worked with one. It's
Of
like no one
course.
will talk to that person. No, they're look, they get the job done. It's okay. You're like,
Yeah.
no, it's not okay. They are crushing souls every day. And it's just
Right.
like,
Yeah.
oh, well, it's going to be okay. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, it's so not okay, you
It's so
know?
not okay. Right. Yeah. Cause I've had it work. There was a company that had a culture, it was a team of 5 people, and they were friends. They just liked hanging out. They liked spending time together, and they hired someone who was in an accounting role. And this person would come into the office and literally wouldn't acknowledge, wouldn't make eye contact. People would say hello, and this person
Oh,
wouldn't
goodness.
even respond. It was just not this person's personality. This person was more introverted. So they would literally walk through the world. And I'm pretty sure they honestly weren't even hearing people say hello. But for this team, there was like all of a sudden this, like, they were like making space for this person. And if you hire one person like that and you don't have the conversation of, hey, here's how we do things here. We greet each other in the morning. We acknowledge each other. We exchange, even if it's just 1 minute, just take a moment and spend time as humans before we dive into our work. If without that, then this person comes in, and then the next person sees that, oh, that's accepted here. Okay, well, that in that case, on some mornings I'll say hello, and some mornings I won't. And then all of a sudden you have a team of 10, and there's such a broad range now of personalities, and it actually dilutes our ability to be aligned and therefore be effective and collaborate with agility.
Right. Definitely so. So in light of that though, what are some strategies that companies, can use to preserve their culture as they scale? Because that scenario right there sounds so like you don't know what you're going to walk into every morning. Like, are we
Yes.
talking today or not talking today? Are we
Yeah.
saying hello or not saying hello? Or it
Right.
might even feel like some parts of the group are cliques and you're like, well, those five are talking, but these three aren't. And these two are like, I don't know, but I just want to please everyone. So I'm talking to them on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but not on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So
Yeah.
like when
Yeah.
you're looking at that,
Yeah.
what should companies do to just really preserve that culture as they start bringing in more people and sometimes quickly bringing in more people, if they have
Hmm.
to ramp up in terms of hiring. So I'd love to hear what should they do, like from the
Yeah.
small person all the way up to the big company.
Yes, yes. So I think it starts with articulating what do we want our culture to be. And so some people do that through values. Sometimes it can be through personality traits that we want the business to have. And so that doesn't mean everyone has to be clones of one another. It just means what are the types of behaviors that we want to pull out of our team members. So
Mhm.
articulating it helps. Definitely have a lot of strategies of how to go about doing that. But if you have a team and let me think about how to best to boil it down. If people want to kind of run this for themselves, I would say maybe just have an honest conversation about how do we currently operate. And I guess that's the other, if I back up just slightly, the other common pitfall is being dishonest with ourselves about our culture. And so people might think that they're very kind, but really what's really going on here. So if you have an honest conversation with a whole team about how we're doing. And for larger teams, we just break into focus groups and just say, what words would you use to describe how we work here? And you can do that by survey or focus groups, live conversation, but just do the work to articulate how do we do things here? What's our culture? And then reinforce it at every step of the game. So onboarding for sure, meeting culture for sure, policies and procedures. I like what you have in the opening of every one of your podcasts around how to break things in so that they're understandable. What's your
Mhm.
word? It's like executionable.
Yes.
Is that your word?
Yes, let's
Yes.
make it that way.
Yes. So that's how it is with culture as well. So how do we make it executionable? And then especially for newer employees, just very frequent feedback around how are they matching the culture and where are they missing. And if they're missing, really share the why behind it. So I remember when I was onboarding my first assistant, she was taking over a lot of the communications with my clients. And so that was a big thing for me to hand
Huge.
over. So getting the tone right really mattered. That was very much my brand. And I needed her to be an extension of me. So there were certain things like I needed her to not apologize, but still take personal responsibility. So I needed to teach her things about my communication style that I'd never even thought about before. But I did that by having her copy me on a bunch of emails in the beginning. Then we just sit down at the end of the week and it's like, no shame. Let's just go through it. Like, where did I feel like you really shined? And where were some things where I feel like we could make some tweaks? And then why? Really stepping back and explaining the why. So I was teaching the concepts or the philosophy behind my behaviors so that it was easier to replicate. I think we can do that for people in any function. And so just make sure we're giving constant feedback, especially in the beginning. And then it becomes less frequent, but maybe it goes from daily to weekly and weekly to monthly and monthly to quarterly and so on. But then getting together as a team, like, how do we feel like we're doing? Are we holding true to what we want to be known for? And is there any changes that we need to make internally? So operationalizing it. I think if anyone does performance reviews, it should definitely be reinforced in performance reviews as well. I'll pause there. There are many other thoughts, but I'll pause
No,
there.
but
I feel like
yeah,
yeah.
those are all fabulous. And I love each and every one of those. And especially around in that beginning portion. I feel like so many of my colleagues, we commiserate, I'll say, around that, like people are onboarding and you're expecting like immediate full on absorption into the company and ready to roll. And it's like, no, there's parts of that culture, the values, the understanding, the tone, as you said. that need to be learned and taught. And like you said, like having that conversation around, hey, let's look at this past week and see what went well, what we could tweak,
Mhm.
and what actually was maybe a total disaster and we have to completely fix.
Yeah.
But being able and setting aside that time, being purposeful and setting aside that time when you are onboarding new people, so that that conversation and that feedback loop is happening and it actually gets closed for both sides. So I love that you shared that. And I have just another question because how do you feel like culture and what we've been talking about, and a lot of my listeners, my clients, some of them, it's not necessarily employees, they're bringing in contractors,
Mhm.
but even in that, I personally feel culture still needs to be a part of it and,
Yes.
things of that sort. But I'd love to hear your take on, are there any different things that they should do because these people are not necessarily employees, but maybe just be in contractual roles? And the fact that sometimes there's, I know we're talking company culture, but sometimes there's ethnic cultural differences
Yeah.
because of the variety of people that they might bring into a team. And so I know for like one client, we have team from the Philippines, Mauritius, Kenya, different time zones in the US, so even in that with the cultural differences that can also
Mhm.
exist. So I know that was loaded. So kind of a
Mhm.
two-parter maybe, but even around that, like the independent contractors, but then people from differing nationalities.
Yes, exactly. So I think that all of those same best practices apply to all the concepts. So yes, to part-time employees, temporary employees, contractors, people all around the globe. I work a lot with global teams. And so the question is, what's the common denominator that we want everyone to have, regardless of how long they're here? And how do we articulate that? And how do we bring people on board? And I think, especially when onboarding people from different geographies, different nationalities, different first languages, different cultures, we need to really partner with local people to make sure that the way we're articulating it translates, because
Mm.
they might associate very different concepts with the word choices that we have to capture our culture. And so really culture exists beyond words. And so if we just need to translate it for people. So obviously scaled down for contractors, we need to translate what's our onboarding look like for part-time workers or temporary workers. But what does our onboarding look like for people who have a different first language or a different time zone or a different culture in terms of ethnic culture? So all of those things apply. And so I am a big believer in just trying to get out of our own way and put ourselves in that person's shoes and say, what do they really want to or need to understand in order to be successful here? And I believe we all are looking around to say, how do we do things here? How can I succeed? And we should be, as employers, making that as easy as possible for folks. And so it's just a question of, spelling it out. And you mentioned earlier distributed teams. I think that that's becoming increasingly challenging because
Yeah.
people will have multiple screens open, and over here I'm working for one company and over here I'm working for another company. And so how do we help people really lock in to the way that we do things here, knowing that we have very little control over their life, their work setup, how they're navigating all of that? And I think that's an ongoing question that I have, is how to do that well. But I've seen some really creative ideas. Like one company, this seems random, but they gave every employee $200 credit to buy shoes in the company's color. Whatever, whatever your favorite shoe. Some people had high heels, some people had sneakers, some people had, like, everybody had their different shoe, but they all had a shoe in the company color,
I
the
like
color
that
that they
though.
had branded. So finding different ways, I think, with physical setups, physical objects, I think help. But also little things like email signatures help give these subtle cues to everybody about how is it that we want to be interacting with one another.
Yeah, no, I love that. And there's a young lady have like a monthly membership with her, but she really focuses on culture too, but like in those remote teams. And she has kind of like little questions that you can ask. So we have them in like in a random Slack channel. And it's, like, what's your favorite? Like what song would you really definitely sing at a karaoke bar? And so it doesn't matter like where you are. Like there's just music is definitely universal. So it's funny to see like some people who are totally in two different continents, like have the same exact song, like, oh my gosh, Whitney Houston, I want to dance with somebody. And you're like, oh,
Yes.
wow, like,
Yes.
so
Yes.
it's little things like that you said, like, that just form almost even connection points between people, which I think helps translate when something maybe is a quick turnaround or something comes across maybe slightly terse, and it's like they start to remember where they have those commonalities. And it, kind of is a lot easier to talk about and discuss. But if you don't have those things or no mechanism in which for team to connect and learn those commonalities about each other, then it's like they have nothing to know how they are like, hey, I've talked to Miriam on Slack. I've never seen her, except for this little
Yeah.
tiny teensy square of a picture. I don't know her voice or something else like that. But I know that she likes bananas over banana bread, or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's really, like you said, even if it's things that seem quirky or weird, like shoes in the company's color, but
Yeah.
those are things that help people connect and bond and feel a sameness, and I think that that's important. And I would love to see like the picture of everyone's shoes. Like I'm so intrigued now. Like
Yeah.
you said, it's like some are high heels, high top sneakers, all the things. But even that choice of a shoe tells you more about that personality of that person, So I
Yes.
think that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. I like what you said about music. It's like, what do we care about here? And how do we make it easy for people to share those
Yeah.
things and connect about on those levels? And
Yeah, making
yeah,
it easy. And that's our job as business owners, as that employer, to make it easy for our teams to succeed. Because I think everyone wants to do that, I mean, everyone has their have a horror story of someone who is absolutely terrible as a team member, but for the most part, people want to succeed, and giving them the tools to empower them to do that makes it just so much easier for them. So
yeah, exactly. That's how I think about it, is create the scaffolding so that they can be set up for success. And
yeah.
so, yes, that's our job, is create the conditions in which other people can thrive. And that's what culture essentially is.
Yes, I love it. And hey, it goes back to that importance of leadership. So I am
Yeah.
so thankful for you, Miriam, and just sharing those really valuable gems, because I feel like there's lots of notes to take away and gnaw on. I'm like, okay, now I see how I can do that a little different. And so I am so grateful for just everything that you've shared today. And I think this is, like, again, so valuable as so many people are looking to scale. And what does that really look like to start to broaden the scope of where your business is now, whether you are
Yeah.
a team of one or a team of 21 or 121, there's definitely things to keep in mind as that process goes forward. So I am so grateful for your knowledge and your expertise and that you joined us today to share it. So I have one other last question, because now I am
Yes.
curious. Do
Yes.
you like regular bananas or do you actually like banana bread?
Oh my gosh. I think bananas are gross and delicious. Like it's like the whole range. And I'm like, now I'm like looking at like, why do I have such a range? It depends on the day. Sometimes I'm like, the most delicious thing in the whole world is a banana. But my default mode is like nasty. But then a banana bread, yes, all day, every day.
All day,
And
every
my
day.
sister makes some really good banana bread.
I am so with you on that. I'm like frozen bananas in a smoothie. Yes. Like banana bread. Yes. I am rarely the person to just go grab a banana as my fruit of choice.
Right. I guess like because they're so often, I leave them too long and then they get mushy. I think
Yes.
that's what happens. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, at least now we know we can eat banana bread all day, every day.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. So thank you again so much. And if you guys want to get in touch with Miriam, you can definitely, we will include the links to her website as well as her LinkedIn. So make sure that you reach out and keep getting more and more information on how you and your team can continue to preserve culture as you scale your business. So thanks for tuning into this episode, and we will see you next time. Bye.